All right, going to continue pretty much talking about the stuff that's in the Smart Recovery Handbook, and so this is basically stuff that will help you out in the long run. Now you're going to want to use this in conjunction with like professional help, like with a counselor, or a therapist, or a psychologist, or someone to pretty much get your head on straight. Because if you're told especially if you're someone who goes into a pretty much using religion as like an option for like your like mental health, in essence overcome it first and foremost, chances are you're not going to necessarily overcome it, because if you're in essence ostracized from that religious group, that's going to be devastating. Now if you use it after the fact, like you going in knowing like, hey look, I'm into Nordic mythology, Christian mythology, or even Islamic mythology, or whatever you're into. Oh, hey, look, I'm. This is a subject that I'm really interested in. After you get your head on straight and everything, like, oh, hey, look, I need to kind of in essence, put the logical stuff up on top of the emotional, so that way I can kind of not necessarily control the emotions, but I can manage them better. Not just putting like the emotions on top of your logical way, because then your emotions are pretty much going to dictate how you are going to go about like with your behaviors. So now, like last week, I touched upon like the 4 points and everything. So this week, I'm going to get into like the concepts that's right in here in the handbook. So I'm going to go right into like the index and everything, and I'm pretty much going to talk about REBT and CBT. So like REBT is rational emotional behavioral therapy. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. So I'm kind of been a while since I've looked at this. So I'm kind of going over this. So and because it's been pretty much a long time since I've actually overcome my substance abuse and everything. So and I mean I do have like a lot of like earlier videos on this stuff and everything, where I pretty much go by chapter by chapter and everything with this. So I in essence go much more in depth on those. Of course, if someone goes back and watches them and hey look, yeah, they're not very good. I kind of want you to touch upon this stuff even more. That's kind of what this is, and I can also redo this even more as well, and kind of maybe branch out and start researching some of the other programs that are out there, the SOS, secular organizations of sobriety. There's Reach Out Recovery. There's Rational Recovery. There's the Phoenix program I've talked about. So there are a ton of other ones. So if people want me to go in more depth on stuff like that, I definitely drop in the comments, and would definitely go more into that. So now kind of getting back to this and everything, and kind of flipping through the pages to kind of get into the REBT and the CBT, because I kind of, like I said, I kind of forget which page it is, and doing a quick uh, kind of the thumb through of the index, and I really didn't necessarily see it. So, but I'm thinking it's starting as I'm going through getting into chapter 3 here, so I can you can pause and kind of zoom in, because I know this stuff is kind of hard to read and everything. Kind of get into the cost analysis benefit and stuff like that, and again using that logical mindset of hey look, we need to put that first and foremost, instead of using our emotions first and foremost. So and uh, again, I'm kind of flipping through this, and kind of not really seeing a CBT and a REBT, but I do know it's in here. So I'm going to kind of change strategies and talk about bounce around and talk about stuff. So now here's another page here. You can kind of zoom in and read, because I know me holding up this is kind of hard to read and everything. So, but the thing I'm showcasing is a strategy that you use. It's you use to defeat urges. All of a sudden, you have this urge to oh man, it'd be a good idea to go out to the bar. Hey look, I like to go to the good old Leprechaun bar, and so I usually drink all there. So that's an urge, and so this is kind of the defeat urges with an acronym called DEADS and everything. So it's pretty much deny, delay, escape the trigger, avoid the trigger, attack the urge, accept the urge, distract yourself with an activity and substitute for addictive thinking and everything. So like uh, deny, delay. Like you kind of like remind yourself repeatedly if it's necessary. Okay, do I necessarily need to go to like the Leprechaun bar? Escape the trigger. Oh, hey, like now the analogy I usually use is like you're going home from work and you usually go down like Main Street, but then you could do like going down a side street. Like you can go like Water Street, which is a side street, and avoid Leprechaun Bar all together. So you're escaping the trigger and then you're avoiding the trigger, and then you attack the urge. Like, oh, hey, look, why do I want to drink? Oh, because it usually makes me feel good in the moment and everything. But then, like, I usually end up like getting drunk, and then like next morning I get hungover and I feel like shit and everything. So like you're attacking the urge, but you accept it. Like, oh, hey, look, I used to like I like going there because it helps me be social and everything. So you're accepting the urge, and then distract yourself with an activity. I use the gym as like a perfect example because you're distracting yourself in an activity. You're going to the gym. So again, instead of going down Main Street, you go down the side street and head to the gym. You still are able to socialize, but you're socializing with much better people at the gym because they're there to improve themselves. People that are going to the bars aren't necessarily there to improve themselves. They're there to just pretty much drown their misery and their sorrows and everything. So you're distracting yourself with an activity, and then like you substitute for addictive thinking. So like getting into like send in healthy substitute thoughts to squeeze out the urge. So like again, like the analogy I use. Oh, hey, look, instead of going to a Leprechaun bar and getting drunk, and then like next day I'm hungover, I feel like shit and everything. I start thinking, okay, wait, instead of going there, let me start thinking on, let me go to the gym. Okay, well, I'm going to like set myself up the day before, so that way I can just grab my gym bag and go, like on my way home from work. Again, instead of going down like Main Street, I go down a side street and go down Water Street and still get to the same destination, like a gym that's maybe like 20 minutes from where I live. I have my gym bag, so like, oh hey, look, I can just boom go right there and like start thinking like, okay, so like instead of going down here, like, oh yes, I'm going to start doing this and like getting into my addictive behavior or addictive thinking with like going down Main Street, going to there, and like having to deal with the negative consequences and everything. Like I start thinking like, okay, well, let's see here. I go down this way, down the Water Street. I still get the same destination. I go to the gym. I usually end up feeling better about myself, and then the next morning, I get up. I feel a lot better, more well rested. I'm not hungover. I have a clear mind. I'm like able to start the next day that much better and everything. So that's kind of like I'm dead. So now I'm like still kind of like trying to like go through this kind of quickly to find like the in essence like the CBT and like the REBT and stuff and everything. So I guess like with me trying to go through this, of course I don't necessarily do much for notes and everything. So that's why I'm kind of like, oh wait, so I guess like for next week I'll actually make notes and everything of actually getting into that and kind of like summarizing those more. So like, but the thing is like the kind of like taking a side step and doing like the dead exercise and everything. You can see how showcases this like in here how it actually gives you tools to like hey here's something that you can use to like in essence attack your substance abuse and substitute it with healthy activities instead of just saying like, oh hey look you need to go to and do like this meeting like every single day and like you have to do these every single day and like well what about the X, Y, or Z problem? No, you just need to do these. All your information is in this one book that we have. Yeah, okay, so like information on overcoming like any problem in life, whether it's like relationships, like financial issues, like maybe like you're facing like a job loss and you're kind of like suffering from like anxiety about it, and like and answers aren't necessarily in one book. You have like many different resources. Like, okay, you have like a anxiety about losing a job because maybe like your industry that you're in is seeing a downturn. Okay, well there are like places that you can go to like that have like temp agencies. You have like places you can go and do job searches and everything and like stuff like that. So you can be like, okay, well I'm feeling anxious about the getting laid off because our industry is like facing a downturn, so I can go here and maybe find something in a field that's similar. Maybe like maybe this one manufacturing assembly job, we're seeing a downturn. Maybe it can go into like assembling something like a totally different, but still manufacturing and everything. So there's tools like that and everything that you can use instead of like, nope, you got to go to more meetings or you got to get into more step work. You got to read this one book more and not give yourself any tools and everything. So I'm pretty much going to continue like attacking stuff with this handbook and like showcase like, hey, look, using like in a sense science and psychology and like pretty much resources that are actually out there that can help you solve your problems in the real world instead of just like kind of denying like, oh nope, I can't see it. Like I just go to meetings, I don't see that problem. I'm just going to go to meetings and not solve any problem and everything. Yeah, that like just going to meetings or reading this one book that was written like 100 years ago, or like and listening to like people who might not necessarily have all their whole life together and everything, not necessarily is the way to go. So again, this is why I'm kind of using this to kind of get into like, hey, look, this is what you use to be able to get into like getting your life in order using science and psychology over a religious organization.